Well, why don't we begin? Let's see the recording. Let's see here. Let's get that.
It's going.
It is recording now?
Yep.
Okay. Good evening or good afternoon, depending on where you live. My name is Bruce Gillette. I am the moderator of Presbyterians for Earth Care. And this webinar this evening is part of a series of presentations that we offer on at least a monthly basis on a wide variety of topics. We had one last week on the General Assembly actions relating to the climate crisis and caring for God's creation. The one before that was looking at the whole worship resourcing for the season of creation. We've done things on tree planting, on sea rise, on all kinds of topics. You'll see the recordings for that on YouTube, linked from the Presbyterians for Earth Care website. And as I said before, this is being recorded and we will have it up on YouTube in just a few days. We are going to be planning more upcoming webinars on a wide variety of topics. Some of you heard the General Assembly passed a overture dealing with 30 by 30, and we're hoping to have a scientist lead us in a discussion for that. We're going to have one on climate-friendly cooking. Our food can make a big impact. What we eat and how we don't waste it can have a large impact on the environment. We're going to look at damages and loss and reparations related to climate change, how children and youth are impacted. We're going to tap friends with the Interfaith Power and Light and have a presentation on cool congregations, how our church buildings can better make use of energy and better care for creation. Weatherizing homes, capitalism, and climate change. All kinds of topics are coming up. If you want to be part of that planning, we are going to be having a meeting this Saturday. Drop me an email or put a note in the chat and we'll send you an invitation for that. But let's get on to this evening. We are very grateful. One of our steering committee members who is here, Natalie Moon Wainwright, recommended our speaker for this evening, Judy. If you saw the posting on the PEC website, has had a life rich with experiences and is going to be a real blessing to us this evening. She is a retired Presbyterian minister. She has been involved in coaching. She's been involved in disaster relief with Red Cross. And she's going to be talking with us as we deal with issues on building resilience, empowering tools for reducing burnout, stress, and trauma as close as your own hands. Take it away, Judy.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to know who's in the room. And the first question, and so you can just raise your regular hand, and if your video's not on, if you can find the reaction button at the bottom and raise your hand, that's great. I'm going to just ask you 4 questions. And the first one is, how many of you have been climate activists since or before the first Earth Day in 1970? Okay, I see a few. Second question, how many of you have become climate activists within the last year or 2? Yay for you, thank you. And then the third question is, how many of you have experienced a climate crisis created event? A fire, a flood, tornado, monsoon. Okay, many of you. Great. This is really what I'm going to address today. And then how many of you want to be personally prepared for when a climate crisis hits your community? I hope that's everybody's hands. Excellent. Well, thank you for being here today. Just a little bit more about me is that I began camping with my family when I was 6 months old. I went to Yosemite for the first time, being a Californian. And then I was telling Bruce earlier that I was a part of the first Earth Day in junior high and joined a very famous ecological organization and have been active ever since. And then I also, as part of my Red Cross disaster childcare volunteer stint, I actually helped with people from Hurricane Katrina in 2005. And I didn't actually go to New Orleans because it was not safe, but we helped the people that fled and came to Southern California, either to be with relatives or just to get, some kind of help that they needed. So that's when I experienced the first really climate emergency and was able to serve others. And then Redwoods Presbytery, where many of us are, is kind of now entering fire season. And we've had some very serious fires since 2017. And so I began offering this workshop to churches at the time after it, but now before the next one, so that they can be prepared using some very simple techniques to help with the stress and the trauma and the burnout that these kinds of events evolve. And I've been working with a group called Capacitar, and in the last year, they have written a whole manual for climate activists. So they're kind of reshaping their focus, but it all overlaps. Stress, trauma, it's just a part of our lives now. So we all know that our world is facing this unprecedented climate emergency. And it's not just environmental and ecological, but the ramifications of that. It's global equity, it's about human rights, it's about social and economic problems. So everybody is affected. And of course, the more impoverished communities and communities without resources are hit the hardest. And that's where these practices
How do
really
I
come in handy.
get the
Because,
mute off?
okay, let's see if I can mute Sandra here.
The webinar, you probably can't.
Huh?
But the webinar, you probably can't.
Well, I've got to hear and listen to her talk.
Okay,
Oh,
but I'm going to ask you to mute.
sure.
There she is. Okay, mute. She wasn't in alphabetical order. So, so we all know what this climate crisis is doing for us. And as I was saying, and so the nice thing about all of these practices is all you need is your hands, which is why I included it in the title. And often when we're in some kind of emergency or stress, our brain pretty much shuts out because it's got the anxiety and the worry and all that. And then our heart is kind of flooded or overwhelmed with emotions. But really, the one thing that we can learn to count on is our body intelligence. It has an innate wisdom that knows how to recover. It knows how to balance itself out. It really knows how to
Okay.
heal. So all of
Man,
these
all the way down where you slide.
all of these practices are body based. And so you don't have to kind of get into a meditative state when stuff is swirling around you. You can just act. So the first thing I want to offer you is centering. And really centering just brings you to yourself in the present moment. And yes, you can do that with your mind, but a very simple way of doing it is taking your fingers and connecting them to create a circuit. And then you can't see me, but I want you to cross your legs at your ankles. And when you do that, you begin to keep all of the energy circulating within yourself, and none is going out into the world. And as you do it, you might just notice that your body is shifting a little bit. There might be a little more calmness, might be a little more quiet, a little more centered. So when your brain's not really working, this is a great form of meditation. So I'll just let you sit there for a moment. And then it kind of finally allows you to breathe deeply. Because often when we're in a crisis or when we're anxious or worried, we forget about the breath. So this just brings you peace and calm. So along with that is the grounding. And I think we've probably all heard about, oh, you need to ground, but most of us don't even realize what that is. really grounding is assisted by gravity. It's dropping the energy of our body or the weight of our body into the ground. And you can place your feet flat on the ground or even the floor, and your body knows to drop its energy. And so it drops down into the earth, and you can just imagine roots going down through the topsoil, past the root of the plants, past all those wonderful microorganisms that are doing the recycling and renewing of the earth, and then down past the aquifers that nourish and feed the organisms, and then down through the dead and decaying materials, which are again are recycling and renewing the earth, and then down through the minerals that are in our bodies, the iron and the copper and the selenium, those things that are in our bones and keep us healthy. And then we can move down even farther into the crystals and the gems that have those energetic properties that can help shift emotions and states of being. And then even farther down into the stalactites and the stalagmites, and even farther down through the magma near the center of the earth, and then all the way down to the I call it the belly button of Mother Earth. And your roots connect in. And that is a place that you can always be grounded to. Whether you are flying in an airplane, whether you are moving about, the best way is to claim your space by putting a circle around it, either in gold or fire or light energy, and just write your name there. And so you can, when you ground, once the thought is triggered, you can ground that simply. And of course it helps to practice, but that's what grounding is. And then of course you can bring up that delicious, nutritious grounding earth, kind of all the way up through all those layers, up through your feet, and just bring it into your body. And earth energy actually runs slower than our life force energy. And so just by doing that, that can also calm you, that can also center you, that can also keep you grounded. So now you are grounded in your space and you're centered in your body. And then another area for protection is you have a second skin. You have an energetic boundary around you. It's called an aura, and that may be a little bit woo-woo for folks that aren't in California or used to talking in energy terms, but it's there, and it's really a protection. And even if you want to think of it as, you know, the spirit protecting you or God protecting you, you have protective forces around your body. And so what I recommend and what I do every day, especially when I go out into the world, is that I put on a reflective protective surface so that any energy that's coming to me gets reflected back to the person. And this will keep you protected, because one of the things that happens to us all day long, all the time, is that we pick up other energy. Every interaction is an exchange of energy. And so every time we talk to a person, every time we watch TV or listen to the news, every time we're out in public, we're interacting with other people's energy. And so we're taking it in unaware, and that is what causes illness and dis-ease in the body. That's what causes stress, that's what causes trauma, that is what causes a lot of dis-ease in our world. So when we protect ourselves, that gives us an extra layer of protection. And especially for those dealing with climate crises and climate activism, you're out there in the world and there's so much energy swirling about that you take it on. So if you can remember to just put that reflective surface on you. I do it, I ground and put my reflective surface on every morning as I swing my legs out of my bed. when I put my feet on the floor, I intentionally say I'm grounding myself, and then I put on my auric layer. So it's really the first line of defense. So another thing about other people's energy is that, like I said, we take on other people's energy. And so what we need to do is we need to learn how to give it back if it penetrates through. So there's a practice that I've learned that's called neutral separations. And I'm going to teach it to you right now. It's very simple. And again, I do this multiple times a day. I'll do it as soon as I get off the Zoom call with you. I do it when I get off the telephone. I do it after a worship service. I do it after I've been in public. I do it, many, many times a day. And I have little reminders that remind me, like when I walk through a doorway, or when I get into my car, or when I close the door after something. So find some structures or some reminders so that you can begin to practice these things and make them, almost automatic. So what the practice is you want to, so I'll just have you think of one person you talked with today, and just recall that person to your mind, kind of outside of your auric boundary, because you don't really want anybody inside of it. And then I want you to think of 5 neutral things that are different between you and them. And I'm actually going to do it with Natalie, if you don't mind. So the first thing I would say is, I'm wearing an orange shirt and Natalie is wearing a gray shirt. Natalie has a purple stripe in her hair, and I have stripes of gray in my hair. Natalie lives in Lakeport, and I live in Marin. Natalie is married, and I am not. And Natalie, do you have some kind of pet? Do you have cats? Yes.
Yeah. I have a cat and a dog and a fish.
Okay, and Natalie has a cat and a dog and a fish, and I have 2 foster bunnies. So notice that those are neutral. They don't have any charge to them. They're not, I didn't describe them as beautiful or wonderful or anything other than kind of just the basic neutral fact. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my hands and I'm going to push them towards Natalie and say, Natalie, I gift you back your energy. And I really just use my hands. I gift you back your energy. And then I'm going to turn my palms towards me, and I'm going to say, and I take back my energy. And then the third thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my palms and begin to press them into the ground, and I'm going to ground myself in present time. And being in present time, if you've learned through mindfulness meditation, is very important, because the past is over, the future hasn't come, and the only thing we have is the present moment. And so every time you're using energy, you need to come into the present moment. So that's another part of the centering and grounding and protection, is you want to do the neutral separations and then bring yourself into present time. So when you do these kinds of practices, you might notice that people have been using your energy and you might have somebody call you from out of the blue and say, what's going on with you? Because you've given them back their energy and they're used to kind of sucking you dry. So that's a little side note that's not necessarily reflective of the climate crisis today, but I just kind of wanted to warn you that when you begin to do some of these things, you might notice a change or a shift, not only in yourself, but in other people that have been, that you've merged with, or that you kind of are thinking about all the time. And it doesn't take away the interaction, it takes away the emotional charge. So that's the difference. You know, they're still your friend, but the emotional charge is gone. And so it just allows you to be much more objective and just kind of see things as, you know, objective. So those are the initial practices that I want to offer as far as centering and grounding and protection. And then I'm going to move on to the one that is my very favorite, the one I teach people all the time. I have a write-up of it on my website, interludecoach.com, if you want to go there to get it. It's called The Finger Holds for Emotion. And this one, little kids love, and you can actually use the tune to Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, which I won't do. But all you need is one hand. And so I'm going to go through it a couple of times. Each finger relates to 2 meridians in the Chinese system. And a meridian is just an energy channel where your energy flows. And that's where your life force is, and that's what keeps you alive. And I will just say as an aside, for a long, long time, allopathic medicine did their studies on corpses. And so a lot of their conclusions weren't based on the life force energy that we all have when we are alive. So life force energy is really important. So your hand, your thumb stands for the emotion of sadness. And perhaps when you were little, you sucked your thumb or experienced grief. And so that's kind of how you can remember this one. And you don't have to remember any of them at all, but it's just helpful to go through it a couple of times. So your thumb is for grief. Then your first finger, if I pointed at you and said, you, do this, I think fear would probably arise. So this is your fear finger. And then we all know what our middle finger is for. It's well known in society these days. This is for anger. And then your fourth finger, often people have a ring. And when they're worried or anxious, they twiddle their ring. And so this is for anxiety and worry. And then the little finger is for when you're feeling small or lack of self-esteem. So those are kind of the 5 emotions based on your fingers. And what we're going to do now is we're going to transform those into the C emotions. So I'd like each of you to take your thumb, and the way I've just been saying it lately is to wrap a burrito around it or a blanket around it. And just hold it there for a moment and notice and breathe and just notice if there's any pulsing, if there's a really strong pulsing, if there's a weak pulsing, if there's nothing at all. And then usually for children, things will start to shift in about 30 seconds to a minute. For adults, it takes a little bit longer, maybe 1 to 2 minutes. And what you're doing with this pulsing, with this, is you're transforming the grief into comfort. So that's the first C, is comfort. And then just kind of notice. Notice if there's any kind of shift in your body anywhere. It's very subtle at first, but the more you do it, the more you'll, your body will be quicker to come into balance. And then your pointer finger, like I said, is for fear. So when you put the blanket around it, you begin to transform it into comfort. Courage, excuse me, courage. So that you have the courage to act and go forth and act from your full balanced self. And find the wisdom there. And your third finger, your anger finger, when you wrap it around, you begin to transform it into compassion, both self-compassion for yourself and compassion for the other person. And perhaps as it becomes balanced, you can become aware of some passionate action for justice. And then your ring finger, your fourth finger, is you're shifting worry and anxiety to calm. And during any kind of crisis, we certainly need calm. And we wouldn't ordinarily think of putting a little blanket around our ring finger. But it's there waiting for you. And then our little finger, we're transforming the lack of self-esteem into confidence. And now as you've done all five, I want you to just notice what you're sensing. If there's a shift that's been happening. And I've seen a couple comments in the chat that say, wow, amazing feeling. I want you to remember this and see how simple it is. Again, it doesn't really take your brain at all. You don't need to remember what the emotions are. You don't need to remember what they transform into. You just do it. And the nice thing about this is you can do this while you're preaching, if you don't use your hands, sitting down. It's not something showy. You can do it anytime. And often, just a second, Bruce, and often I will do this when I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm worried or anxious about something, and I'll just run through the fingers, and it really does help. Did you want to say something, Bruce?
I noticed Gordon had his hand raised. Do you want questions throughout or at the end of your presentation?
I prefer them at the end unless it's something about what we're doing.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. I wasn't sure if it was left up from earlier. So that's really kind of the go-to for everybody. And now I realize that we've been sitting for about a half an hour, and maybe you've been sitting a little bit more. And so I want to get your body moving a little bit, because the more that you move your body, the more the energy can move through you and dislodge the blockages and begin to offer a free flow. And anytime there's a blockage in the body, there's usually some kind of pain or some kind of sensation that's uncomfortable. And so right now, there is so much energy around us, and our body notices all of it. It notices the weather, it notices the environment, it notices the news, it notices the violence, it notices the challenges, it notices the moods, it notices the struggles of families and friends, it notices the negative energy in groups. You name it, your body knows it. We just may not be aware of it. So like I said, simple movement is great. And one of the things that I hear over and over is that we're too sedentary of a society. And if we just remember to stand up and sit down or move around for 15 to 20 seconds, that would be great. But I'm going to teach you some very modified Tai Chi. And if you can't stand up, you can do them sitting down. But again, I'm going to stand up, and I know you can only see half of me, but I will talk you through it anyway. And then the most important part is really to see this part of the body. And so the first thing I want us to do is just to learn a rocking movement. And the Chinese people say that if you do this every day, you will live to be 100. Now you can't see my feet, but all I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the energy from the earth and then bring it down. Okay, that's all. I'm going to bring up energy, that delicious earth energy that we bathed ourselves in, and then we're going to bring down light from the heavens. And as we do this, we're going to put our left foot forward, and then we're going to balance on our front foot and our back foot. So our left foot forward and balance. And then as we move forward, we're going to put our toe down and lift up our right heel. And as we move back, we're going to put down our right heel and lift up our left toe. So basically, you're just rocking forward and back and forward and back. And again, we're letting go of the energy, kind of like I showed you earlier. And then you're going to turn it back, and you're going to bring in the light energy, the healing energy. You're going to let go of negativity in your body and bring in healing energy. So let go of negative energy and bring in healing energy. And then one more time. And then we're going to bring our hands to our center, kind of around our navel area. And then we're going to do the same thing with the right foot. And the right foot, we're going to get rid of the violence and the negative energy in the world. And we're going to bring in peace and harmony. And let go of violence and negativity and bring in peace and harmony. I don't think I can, well, maybe I'm not sure I can show you my feet, but let me just try. Let me see if I can do it this way. Okay, so let's see if I can get okay, so I'm going like this, and then my heel is going up. Let's see, it's not going to work. And I'm worried about this, but the foot is going forward, and the back heel lifts up. Then the toe lifts up, and then the heel lifts up. Okay, that's the best it's going to be. But thank you for asking, Daniela. Okay. So the next one that we're going to do is we're going to do a shower of light. And we're going to use the same feet movement, but this time we're going to just bring a shower of light. Oh, now it's really okay. We're going to bring a shower of light from our waist up to our head and down. Okay. So again, with step the left foot out, bring the light up and down. And we're bathing ourselves in healing light. We're bringing in strength and resilience. We're letting go of any negativity. And the hands come down. And just feel that shower of light cleansing and renewing you, taking away the anxiety and the worry, filling you with God's light and goodness. And then we'll pause, put our hands at the center, and then we'll do the same thing with the right foot. And as we do it with the right foot, we're going to get in touch with the violence and negativity in the larger world and release it as our hands go down. And we're going to commit to healing the wounds of the world. Bringing it up, out head high, and down. You guys look great. Very good. And some people, I can see you because your cameras are very different than mine, so it's wonderful. Okay, one more time. Okay. And then the next one we're going to do is called the globe of light. And this one's kind of fun. And if you can look at each other in your Zoom screens, what we're going to do is we're going to, again, put the left foot forward. We always start on the left-hand side. And the left-hand side is about us personally. And the right-hand side is about the global community. So we're going to toss a ball of light. we're going to just play. Because so often in times of stress and worry, we forget to play. We forget that lightness of being that we all are. Just imagine you as a child, playing freely, maybe out in nature, enjoying God's creation. Just toss the ball. And then you want to bring your hands back in, and then with the right foot, I want you to look at somebody in the camera and toss them the ball of light. Notice the smile on their faces. Offer the gift that you have to give to the world. Offer gratitude for the human community, the churches and the people that are so concerned about the climate crisis. Okay, one more time, and then we'll come back to the center. And then the last one is we're going to fly through the air. So this time your left foot and your left hand are the same. Your left hand is going to go above your head. Basically, you're just going to fly. So, or it's kind of like the freestyle swimming. You're going to fly through the air. You're going to enjoy the grace and the lightness of your body. You're going to let go of all that weighs you down. And you're going to feel the liberation of your spirit. And this is one that I hope you do often. It may look kind of silly, but oh, it feels so good. Just to feel light, flying, free. Okay, and let's come back to center and bring our left foot in and do it with our right foot. So right foot, right hand. Start with the right hand, left. And now we're flying all over the world. And we're seeing the possibilities of the human family in the different parts of the world. And we're encouraging them and inspiring them to bring healing to all the places dealing with climate emergencies and war and violence and all those other things. But for today, we're encouraging them and bringing healing to all the places in a climate emergency. Okay, and then you can come to center. And I'll just say that I hope you can notice how simple these are and the movement that's happened and the energy in your body and the balancing that goes on without really having to think. So you can go ahead and sit down. And I'm going to take a drink of liquid here for a moment. And I'm going to teach you one more set of things because I knew that would be all we kind of had time for. And these are really fun to do with another person. So I know Gordon is there with his wife. So Gordon and Margaret might want to do this on each other. But you can do it on yourself too. And these are head holds. Now I was talking earlier about that the head isn't really there during stress and crises and things. So this is giving some attention to our head. So these are called head holds. And the first one we're going to do is we're going to just take our hands slightly cupped or circled, and we're going to put it about 3 inches off our head. We don't really ever need to touch somebody. And perhaps after all that Tai Chi, you can already notice the energy that's there. It's like, whoa, I've got a lot of energy moving through my hands right now. But what we're doing, and this is great for older folks too, or for everybody really, is that we're balancing the left side of our brain and the right side of our brain. We're just holding it and allowing it to communicate with the other side. This is really important for kids with ADHD, any kind of autism. Just doing this for 30 seconds to a minute really encourages kind of the cross patterning of the brain. They call it, yeah. So this one we're balancing, it's called the halo hold, and it's balancing the right side of the brain and the left side of the brain. And the next one, and it doesn't matter which hand you use, you're going to put one at your front brain, your analytical thinking brain, and then you're going to put the other hand down lower, which is your emotional or reptilian brain. And you're going to balance out those as well. You're going to let your analyzer brain and your emotional brain talk to each other and work together. Because oftentimes they get out of balance. Our society is so used to thinking all the time and really downplays the emotions. And yet our emotional brain is there for a reason. It has many important things to tell us. So again, just hold it a few inches away and balance your thinking brain and your emotional brain. And then the next one is called the crown hold, and this may be the most difficult one to show, but what I'm going to do is, you know, the soft spot on the head of a baby, really like right in the center, you're going to put your two thumbs there. And then you're just going to let your fingers fall over your forehead. And this is actually really helps. Yes, beautiful. You guys all look really good. This helps with emotional release. You know, oftentimes our emotions get stuck, or we've been taught not to show our emotions. And so this just offers a really gentle release. Especially if you have headaches or migraines or sinus issues, this one is really good for releasing stuck energy. Alrighty, and then the next one is the shoulder hold. And you basically, you put your, at least 3 fingers kind of right where your shoulders, the diagonal portion kind of comes flat. It doesn't really, you can feel in there. It can be really light. And this really is about releasing excess baggage. You know, so many of us, especially if we're worried about climate, is we carry the world on our shoulders. And so this kind of just releases some of that extra baggage, the anxiety and the burdens of life. And this is really nice when another person does it to you. And they're just kind of putting their hands on your shoulders and, you know, in some ways also grounding you. So you can do this when you're at your computer. You can do this, you know, when you're stopped at a stoplight. You can do this many, many times a day. And I'm hoping that a few of these you'll find favor with, that you'll really like and you'll begin to practice. And then the last one for today is called the heart hold. And this one again is a little bit harder to do yourself, but you just put your hand on your heart. Oh yes, Daniela, you can. You can cross your arms on the shoulder hold if that is easier or it feels more comfortable for you. Thank you. I meant to mention that. So that you can do that. And then the last one is the heart hold. And usually you do one in the front and the back, and that's not always that comfortable. So of course you can just, you know, do both hands in front and show yourself a little love. And this one actually drains out emotional pain, grief, and resentment. And I know I've been moving a little quickly today, but we're doing great. I've got one short thing, and then we'll do kind of the closing and questions and closing. So I'm going to just show you a couple of simple acupressure moves, and acupressure is acupuncture without the needles. So again, you're just using your hands. And the first one, This one is the go-to for any kind of crisis, overwhelm, fainting. You take your the knuckle of your first finger and you put it right under your nose, kind of where you know that you've got that little rectangle, just right there. And that really, and then you just press. And that will bring your body back to balance and center. So anyone in any kind of emergency, this is the first go-to. So if a person is in a climate crisis emergency and they're hysterical, just have them do this. Another one for anxiety is you take your hand and you go down to where the little indentation is, below your, on the crease of your wrist, down from your little finger. If you just hold this, this is for anxiety. So Tony, follow your little finger down, right to the, yeah, right to the crease. There you go. And then one we've done already for anxiety is the shoulder one again. So again, you can do this or cross it over. This also helps with anxiety. And then another one for anxiety is just right below your clavicles, right here. And this is also good for fear and anxiety in the chest area. So I hope you're noticing that your body is pretty amazing. It's got all these built-in healing places that we have lost over the last hundreds of years. But these are available to us anytime. And then for a lot of climate activists and people, you know, that have just had catastrophic crises, get depressed because of the loss of meaning and the feeling that there's no hope for the future. And so a very easy one for depression is to put your 3 fingers, and you can put all of them there, but you just put it again kind of right on that soft spot on the crown of your head. And that will actually help with depression. And another one that helps with depression is you put your same hands on the forehead between your eyebrows, right where the nose is connected to the forehead. And then a third one for depression is first you want to interlace your fingers, and then I'm going to show you where you turn it around, you put your thumbs right down at the bottom of your brain where the skull meets the neck, and you press in those kind of 2 holes, and you just hold it there. And this is one of my favorite ones. So it's kind of like you're giving yourself a little pillow, but it's also opening up your chest. And when we get depressed and sad, we tend to cave in. And even working on computers and things, we're so hunched forward that this one actually opens up the chest as well, which allows room for the emotions to flow freely as well as all the energy. And then the last one, often people stay awake at night because they're worried and anxious. So a very easy acupressure practice is for the 3 fingers to go on your forehead between the eyebrows like we did. And then the other hand just rests on the chest right here. And so I know I've given you a lot today, and that luckily you will have the recording. But as I mentioned, I work with Capacitar.org, and I'll put that in the chat. And they have an emergency kit in like 25 languages, and it's free. So I'll put their website in the chat, and you can download the emergency kit, and it has everything that I taught you and more that I would have liked to have taught you, but I knew I was going at a fast clip already. So while I'm putting that in the chat, Bruce, can you start monitoring questions?
If people raise their hand, they will be at the top of the gallery.
Yeah.
Gordon raised his hand earlier. Gordon, if you have a question, unmute yourself and go ahead and ask it, please. And if not, others are invited to go down at the bottom of your Zoom screen. There's a little icon that says reaction. And as you click that, there's an option to raise hand. That will bring you to the top of the screen. Natalie, do you have one?
Yeah. I'm wondering, Judy, if you need to put more pressure for the acupressure.
No, you really don't.
Okay.
You don't. Yeah. In
Because I
fact,
have,
they kind of want you just to use the middle part of your each digit, because that's where the energy comes from. So you don't need much pressure.
okay.
Yeah. Did you experiment with that? Did one
Well-
feel better than another?
I have been using pressure points to relieve restless legs.
Oh, yes.
I always thought I needed to really push hard.
Yeah.
So
Well, I will say that's how I find them, because when I do a whole series of them, and it's like I have to find it, I press really hard, and then I release it up. So I know the right place, but I don't get that pain factor. Good question, Natalie. Thank you. Yes, Bruce.
I'm very grateful for what you've done this evening, and I'm also grateful you reminded people we're recording this, because you did give a lot of exercises.
I know.
I know I, for one, will want to go back and practice a little more, and it has been wonderful. I'm wondering, you mentioned this one resource, and we will include that when we post the recording. If there are any other books or helpful links for us to have, if you could send that to myself or Mindy, we'll include that as well.
Okay.
People
Okay.
have plenty of opportunities to learn and grow. So
Yeah.
we're very grateful for what you've done this evening. Are there other questions and comments?
I do have a little closing ritual if you when we're ready.
I don't want to rush things. I just,
Yeah.
I do want to mention we did different spiritualities are helpful for different personalities. So there's no right or wrong way of doing this. Last summer at the conference, we had a spiritual director do a workshop on spiritual practices for activists. And she was a spiritual director named Emily Schwenker, and it was very good. And if people are interested in seeing a different approach, not a better one, just a different one, that is available again on the PEC website. I'm finding this very helpful. I've done yoga and some other things. Yes.
Yeah, and the only yoga one they do is Salute to the Sun, and it's very, all this is, they've done it so it makes it the easiest for everyone. I mean, it's very, very simplified and modified. So the Tai Chi didn't really, if people were doing Tai Chi on a regular basis, what I offered you probably didn't look like what you were doing. But again, it's this multicultural awareness for everybody to be able to do. Yeah. Okay. So I would like us to close with a song. It's called the Fire Prayer, and it's the words. It's called "As One We Walk This Earth." So I'm going to share it. I have my original sound on, and then we can just do it, and I'll kind of model it. So let me get this going here.
As one we walk this earth together. As one we sing to her our song. As one we love her. As one we heed her. Her heart beats with our own as one.
Okay, so that's it. And what I'd like you to do, again, if you are able to, is to stand and imagine that you are in a circle holding each person in the little window's hand. And there's actually some movement to this. And I'll just do it as we go along, since we won't trip over each other because we're in our own little squares. But let's just move with this prayer.
As one
Gonna walk.
we join with her, our mother.
Walk.
As one we feel her sacred song.
Okay, put your hands at your heart.
As one we touch her. As
Open.
one we hear her. Her heart beats with our own.
You bow. Walk.
As one we walk this earth together. As one we sing to her our song.
Now hands at the heart.
As one we love her.
And as we heal her this time, then back to the heart. Bow. Walk.
As one we join with her, our mother. As one we feel her sacred song.
Now we touch.
As one we touch her. As one we hear her. Her heart beats
Bow.
with our own as one.
Walk.
As one we walk this earth together. As one we sing to her our song. As one we love her. As one we hear her. Her heart beats with our own
Wow.
as one. As one we join with her, our mother. As one we feel her sacred song. As one we touch her. As one we hear her. Her heart beats with our own as one. Her heart beats with our own as one.
Be healed and heal the planet. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you, Judy. I'm going to stop the recording now. If anybody wants to ask something of Judy with the recording off, you're more than welcome to stay for a few minutes and continue the conversation.
I think Lorraine had a question earlier.